The cargo hauler shuddered violently as Jake Morrison fought the controls. Red warning lights bathed the cockpit in hellish glow. His number 2 engine had blown 30 minutes ago, and the backup thruster was running on fumes. The nearest station, Crossroads Theta, materialized on his viewport like a prayer answered. He didn't care that it was neutral territory, a melting pot of a dozen alien species. He needed repairs, and he needed them now. The landing was rough. Metal shrieked against metal as his ship scraped the docking platform. Jake killed the remaining engine and sat back, exhaling hard. Alive. That was something. He grabbed his credit chip and emergency toolkit, then headed into the station's sprawling marketplace. He had maybe 6 hours before his cargo spoiled, and finding compatible parts for a human-built freighter in alien territory was going to be hell. The market assaulted his senses. 1,000 smells, none of them pleasant. Vendors shouting in languages his translator chip struggled to parse. Creatures with too many limbs, too few eyes, and colors that shouldn't exist in nature. Jake pushed through the crowd, scanning for anything that looked like a parts dealer. His boots pounded the deck plating as he ran. Late, desperate, and not watching where he was going. He felt it before he understood what happened. Something smooth and warm beneath his boot heel. A sound, sharp and pained, cut through the marketplace noise. Jake stumbled forward and spun around. Behind him stood a woman, if you could call her that. She was tall, nearly 6.5 feet, with skin that shimmered like polished silver-blue metal. Her eyes were large and luminous, shifting between violet and gold. Her hair, if that's what it was, moved like living silk in shades of deep purple. She wore dark armor that hugged her athletic frame, and from the base of her spine extended a long, elegant tail covered in the same shimmering scales. The tail he'd just stepped on. Her face twisted in pain and rage. The crowd around them went silent. Completely, unnaturally silent. Jake's translator chip crackled, then caught her words as she hissed something in a language that sounded like wind chimes breaking. You dare? You dare touch my tail? Sorry, Jake, stammered. Hands up. Accident. Total accident. I didn't see. Silence! Her voice carried authority that made his spine straighten involuntarily. Station security materialized from nowhere. 4 armored figures surrounding him. They weren't human. They were the insignia of Crossroads Theta, but their weapons were pointed at him. Sir, you need to come with us, one said through a translation device. Why? I said I was sorry. The woman stepped forward, her tail moving behind her like an angry serpent despite her obvious attempt to control it. Up close, she was terrifyingly beautiful. Sorry is insufficient. You have invoked the Velthara, the ancient binding. The what? Jake looked between her and the guards. I just stepped on your tail. I didn't invoke anything. A guard grabbed his arm. In Veloran culture, touching a female's tail is a marriage proposal. You are now legally bound. The words hit him like a physical blow. Marriage? Are you insane? I stepped on her by accident. Intent is irrelevant, the woman said coldly. Her accent was crisp, each word precisely formed. The Velthara is sacred law. You touched my tail in public space. Witnesses have confirmed it. The contract is binding across 47 star systems, including your human territories. I am Lyria Venethar, High Commander of the Veloran 5th Fleet, and you, human, are now my unwilling husband. Jake's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. He'd stopped for repairs, stepped on a tail, and now he was married to an alien warrior who looked like she wanted to snap his neck. There has to be a way out of this. There is not. Lyria's voice carried equal parts fury and resignation. Trust me, human. I am no more pleased than you, but the law is absolute. We have 72 hours to complete the bonding ceremony, or we both face permanent exile from our homeworlds. Both? Jake felt his stomach drop. You too? The Velthara binds both parties equally. She looked away, jaw tight. My career, my family, my entire life depends on completing this farce. As does yours, apparently. A guard pushed Jake forward. You'll be escorted to processing. The ceremony will begin in 18 hours. As they led him away, Jake caught Lyria's eyes. For just a moment he saw past the anger. She was terrified. So was he. The holding cell was clean but cold. Jake sat on the metal bench, head in his hands. 18 hours until he married a complete stranger from another species. An angry, powerful stranger who commanded fleets and could probably kill him with one hand. His cargo was definitely spoiled by now. His ship was broken, and his life as he knew it was over. The door hissed open. Lyria entered, now wearing a formal robe that seemed to shift colors in the light. She looked at him with barely concealed contempt. "We need to establish terms," she said. "Terms? For our forced marriage? This is a legal contract. After the ceremony, we go our separate ways. We never speak again. The bond will exist on paper only." She crossed her arms. "I will not have some clumsy human cargo pilot destroying everything I've built." Jake stood, anger finally overwhelming shock. "Oh, I'm sorry my existence is such an inconvenience. Maybe watch where you put your tail next time." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "My tail is a sacred part of my body. You should have watched where you stepped." "I was in a hurry." "My ship was dying. Your problems are not my concern." They stood nose to nose. Well, nose to chest given her height. The air crackled with tension. Before either could speak again, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights began rotating. A voice over the intercom barked orders in multiple languages. A guard burst into the cell. "Commander Venethar, we're under attack. Assassins in the ceremonial hall." Lyria's entire demeanor changed instantly. The angry woman vanished, replaced by a hardened warrior. "How many?" "At least 6. They're targeting the ceremony preparation." "They knew you'd be here." She turned to Jake. "Can you fight?" "Can I... what?" "Fight." "Can you use a weapon?" "I mean, yeah, but..." She grabbed his arm and pulled him into the corridor. Weapons fire echoed from somewhere above. "Someone wants me dead before this marriage is complete, which means they want you dead too. Congratulations, husband. You're now a target." They ran through twisting corridors. Lyria moved with predatory grace, her tail coiling and uncoiling behind her for balance. She grabbed a pulse rifle from a fallen guard and tossed a sidearm to Jake. He caught it. Checked the charge. Standard plasma pistol. He'd used similar weapons before, though he'd never expected to use one at his own wedding. They reached the ceremonial hall through a service entrance. Inside was chaos. Bodies on the ground, some moving, some not. 5 figures in black combat gear fired at station security from behind overturned tables. They wore masks, but their movements were fluid, professional. These weren't random thugs. "Military trained," Lyria whispered. This was planned. She looked at Jake. "Stay behind me. Like hell." He moved to her right flank. 2-on-2 odds are better than 5-on-1. She gave him a sharp look, then the briefest nod. On 3, 1, 2. They moved together. Lyria's rifle sang, precise 3-round bursts. Jake followed her lead, firing at targets she illuminated. Their movements synchronized without planning, without practice. When she went high, he went low. When she advanced, he covered. 2 assassins dropped before the others realized they were flanked. The remaining 3 turned their weapons. Energy bolts sizzled past Jake's head. He dove behind a pillar, returned fire. Lyria's tail whipped out, catching one assassin across the face with enough force to shatter his mask. She shot him twice before he hit the ground. Jake took down another as the man reloaded. The last assassin threw a grenade. "Move!" Lyria grabbed Jake and pulled him behind a heavy altar just as the explosion shattered the air. Debris rained down. His ears rang. Through the smoke, the final assassin advanced, a long blade in his hands. Personal, Jake thought dimly. This one wanted to finish it close. Lyria met him blade to blade, producing a curved sword from somewhere in her robes. They clashed, sparks flying. The assassin was good, but Lyria was better. She moved like water, her tail acting as a counterweight for impossible dodges. The assassin lunged. She sidestepped, her blade finding the gap in his armor. He fell. Silence. Lyria stood among the bodies, breathing hard. Blood. Both red and other colors stained her robes. She turned to Jake, eyes wide. "You fought well for a cargo pilot? You're not so bad yourself." "For someone who hates me." He checked his weapon, safed it. "So who wants you dead badly enough to attack a neutral station?" "That is an excellent question." She knelt by one of the bodies, pulled off the mask. The face beneath was Veloran, but younger, with different markings. "Pith Regiment. These are my own people. Your people tried to kill you at your own wedding. That's messed up even by my standards." She stood, face grim. "Someone within the Veloran military wants me removed. Permanently. They knew about the Velfhara. They knew I'd be here." Her eyes narrowed. "They may have even arranged for you to step on my tail." Jake felt cold. "You think this was a setup? The whole thing? I don't believe in coincidences." She walked to the ceremonial platform, now scorched and damaged. "The question is why? Why go through this elaborate plan? Why not simply kill me in transit? Because an assassination looks suspicious, but a disgraced commander married to a random human and killed in an unfortunate attack?" Jake followed her reasoning. "That just looks like bad luck." "Precisely." She turned to him, really looking at him for the first time. "You may be more intelligent than I assumed." "Thanks, I think." Station security flooded in, weapons drawn. The captain, a reptilian species Jake didn't recognize, surveyed the damage. "Commander Venethar, are you injured?" "No, but we need the station locked down immediately. No ships in or out. These assassins had help." She gestured at the bodies. "I want every piece of their equipment analyzed. Trace their weapons, their communications, everything." The captain hesitated. "Commander, with respect, you have no jurisdiction here. This is neutral territory." Lyria's expression could have frozen stars. 5 of my soldiers just tried to murder me on your station. That makes it Veloran business. Unless you'd prefer I contact the 5th Fleet and have them ask more directly?" The captain backed down. "I'll begin the investigation immediately." As security processed the scene, Lyria pulled Jake aside. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "We're not safe here. If they sent 5, there are more waiting. We need to complete the ceremony and leave." "Leave? To where?" "Anywhere but here." She glanced around. "I was investigating irregularities in fleet communications before this happened. Encrypted messages, unauthorized supply transfers. I thought it was simple corruption. Now, I think it's much worse." "How much worse? The kind that gets people killed for asking questions?" She met his eyes. "If we complete this ceremony, we're legally bound. You'll be caught in whatever storm is coming. I can't promise your safety. In fact, I can almost guarantee danger." Jake should have run, should have found a way out, broken the contract, consequences be damned. But he thought about the way she'd fought, the way they'd moved together like they'd trained for years instead of minutes. He thought about the fear he'd seen beneath her anger, and he thought about what kind of person he'd be if he abandoned someone who needed help, even if that someone was an alien warrior who'd initially wanted to throttle him. "Then I guess we'd better get married before someone else tries to kill us," he said. Something flickered in her expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Can't it be both?" This time she did smile. Just a little. "Come. We have a ceremony to complete. Try not to step on my tail during the vows." The ceremony was rushed, conducted in a secured room with minimal witnesses. A Veloran priest, ancient and solemn, recited words Jake didn't understand. Lyria translated the important parts. He had to place his hand on her tail, the very tail he'd stepped on, and swear to honor the bond. Her hand trembled slightly when she placed it over his heart, swearing the same. When it was done, the priest declared them bound in the eyes of 47 star systems. Jake Morrison, cargo pilot, was now married to High Commander Lyria Venethar. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. They had barely left the ceremony room when Lyria's communicator buzzed. She checked it, face darkening. "We need to go. Now!" "What is it?" "Fleet Command just issued orders for my arrest. Charges of treason and conspiracy." She grabbed his hand. They're moving faster than I thought. We have maybe 10 minutes before the station is surrounded. They ran to the docking bay. Jake's broken freighter sat exactly where he'd left it. It won't fly, he said. The engine's shot. Then we take mine. She led him to a sleek vessel that looked like a predatory bird, all sharp angles and dark metal. Veloran's scout ship. Fast, armed, and currently the only thing between us and a firing squad. They boarded. The interior was cramped but efficient. Lyria took the pilot seat with practiced ease, her fingers flying over controls that looked nothing like human systems. The ship hummed to life with a sound like singing crystals. Jake strapped into the co-pilot seat as the docking clamps released. "Station control is hailing us," Jake said, watching the display. "Ignore them." Lyria's hands moved faster, rerouting power to engines and shields. This is going to be rough. The ship launched like a missile. Jake's stomach flipped as they cleared the station just as a Veloran destroyer dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly ahead. Its weapons locked on immediately. "Hold on!" Lyria threw the ship into a spiral that would have killed a human pilot from the G-forces. Her tail wrapped around her seat for stability. Warning alarms screamed as energy bolts sizzled past their hull. Jake gripped his seat, fighting unconsciousness. "Little warning next time. Next time marry someone less popular." She banked hard, diving under the destroyer's firing arc. More ships appeared on the scope. 3, now 4. All Veloran military. All hunting them. Lyria activated a display showing stellar charts. We can't outrun them, but we can outmaneuver them. Human space is 4 jumps away. If we can reach it, they'll follow us. You said this marriage is binding in human territory too. Yes, but humans have different extradition laws. They can't just arrest me there. It buys us time. She executed another brutal turn. One of their pursuers wasn't as lucky. It clipped an asteroid and spun off course. 3 left. The chase continued across 2 systems. Lyria flew like she was born in the pilot's seat, using asteroid fields and debris clouds like urban cover. Jake monitored their 6, calling out firing solutions. Twice he manually targeted their rear guns, forcing pursuing ships to break off. They worked together seamlessly. Communication reduced to single words. There, turning, fire. Trust built in crisis, faster than in years of peace. They made the 3rd jump with hull damage but still flying. The pursuers fell back, unwilling to follow into the transition zone between Veloran and human space. But as they emerged into clear space, Lyria's instruments lit up with new contacts. More? Jake scanned the scope, then his blood ran cold. Those aren't military. They're raiders. Human raiders. A dozen small ships surrounded them, weapons hot. The lead ship hailed them in accented English. "Veloran vessel, cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist and we'll take what's left after you're dead." Lyria looked at Jake. "Your people?" Not exactly. Raiders work for themselves. Scum, he thought fast. "But I speak their language. Let me handle this." She yielded the communication station. Jake opened a channel, putting every ounce of cocky confidence into his voice. "This is Jake Morrison to Raider Fleet. You're making a big mistake. This vessel is carrying experimental weapons systems. Fire on us and you'll set off a chain reaction that'll take out half this sector." Silence. Then laughter. "Nice try, Morrison. We scanned your ship. 1 scout vessel, damaged shields, no weapons that'll do more than tickle us. Last chance. Surrender or die." Jake looked at Lyria. She met his gaze and something passed between them, an understanding. They'd survived assassins and fleet destroyers. They weren't dying to raiders. "Weapon status?" he asked quietly. "Forward cannons at 60%, missiles depleted. Shields at 20%. She paused. "And 1 experimental weapon they didn't scan for. But it'll drain our entire power core. 1 shot." "What kind of weapon?" "The kind that turns matter into very small, very fast-moving particles." She pulled up the firing solution. "I can take out their lead ship and maybe 2 others. The rest will scatter or swarm us. Probably swarm." "Do it." She initiated the firing sequence. The ship vibrated as power channeled into the weapon. The lead raider ship must have detected the energy spike because they fired everything they had. Bolts hammered their shields. Alarm shrieked. One more hit, and they'd breach the hull. Lyria fired. The weapon made no sound in the vacuum, but the result was spectacular. A lance of pure white energy struck the lead ship dead center. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ship simply ceased to exist, transformed into expanding gas and debris. The blast caught 2 nearby vessels, shredding them. The remaining raiders scattered like frightened fish. Lyria's ship went dark. Everything except life support. They drifted, powerless, in the debris field. Jake exhaled slowly. That was insane. That was necessary. She worked on auxiliary power. We have maybe 2 hours before main power comes back online. If those raiders return, or if the fleet catches up, we're dead. Jake finished. He looked at her, this alien woman he'd been forced to marry less than a day ago. They'd fought together, fled together, nearly died together multiple times. So what now, Commander? What's your plan? She stopped working and turned to face him fully. In the dim emergency lighting, her features were softer, less severe. I need to know why the fleet wants me dead. Before this happened, I intercepted messages about something called Project Catalyst, weapons shipments to coordinates I didn't recognize. When I started asking questions, I was transferred to ceremonial duties at Crossroads Theta, a punishment posting. Then you stepped on my tail. You think Project Catalyst is connected? I think someone wanted me sidelined before I discovered too much. Then they decided sidelined wasn't enough. She pulled up star charts. These coordinates, the ones from the intercepted messages, they're in neutral space. Dark zone. No colonies, no stations, nothing officially. But something unofficially? That's what we're going to find out. She met his eyes. I can drop you at the nearest human station if you want. The marriage contract is complete. You're free to go. Jake thought about it. Really thought about it. He could walk away, return to his simple life, hauling cargo across known space, pretend the last 24 hours had been a bad dream. But he'd seen something in Lyria during their fight, during their escape. Underneath the cold warrior exterior was someone who fought for what was right, even when it cost her everything. Plus, someone had tried to kill him too. He took that personally. "I'm in," he said. "Someone shot at me. I'd like to know why." She smiled then, a real smile that transformed her face. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm still just a cargo pilot. I can fly and shoot, but tactical planning isn't exactly my specialty. Then I'll handle strategy. You handle flying." She extended her hand, human style. "Partners?" He took it. Her grip was strong, her skin cool to the touch. Partners. The power came back online 90 minutes later. They set course for the coordinates, jumping through 3 systems to avoid detection. Along the way, Lyria taught Jake the basics of Veloran ship systems. He picked it up quickly, his natural piloting instincts adapting to the alien controls. She seemed surprised by his competence. "You're better than you claim," she observed during their second jump. "I'm a good pilot. Never said otherwise. Just not military trained. Perhaps that's an advantage. You think differently, move differently. When we fought those assassins, you didn't follow standard tactics. You improvised. That's rare in professional soldiers." "Is that a compliment, Commander?" "It's an observation." But her tone was warmer. "And call me Lyria. We're married, apparently. Formality seems excessive. Jake, just Jake." He checked their approach vector. "We're coming up on the coordinates. Nothing on scopes yet. Go to passive sensors. If there's a facility out here, they'll be watching for active scans." He complied, switching to passive monitoring. For several minutes, there was nothing but empty space. Then, slowly, contacts began appearing. Ships, dozens of them, all cold and dark, drifting in formation. "What am I looking at?" Jake whispered, though there was no one to hear. Lyria's face had gone pale. "Those are derelict vessels, human designs. Colony ships." She pulled up records cross-referencing their signatures. These ships were reported missing over the last 2 years. Lost to pirates or navigation errors. 17 vessels. Thousands of colonists. She turned to him, horror in her eyes. They weren't lost. They were taken. Jake felt sick. Taken where? She pointed to the scope. Beyond the derelict fleet, a massive structure hung in space. It looked like a station, but wrong. Organic somehow, despite being clearly technological. Lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at. "We need to get closer," Lyria said. "That's a terrible idea, I know. But we need proof of what's happening here." They approached slowly, using the derelicts as cover. As they drew near, Jake saw movement. Smaller ships, Veloran designs, moving between the station and the colony ships, transferring something or someone. Lyria activated high-resolution scans, recording everything. They're taking the colonists off the ships, moving them into that station. Why? What possible reason? Jake stopped as understanding hit. Oh no, they're using them as test subjects for whatever Project Catalyst is. Humans have no political protection in deep space. No one would look for them here. Lyria's voice shook with rage. This is an act of war, against your species, against everything the treaty stands for. A communication burst hit their ship. Encrypted, but Lyria's systems decoded it automatically. What they heard made both of them freeze. Commander Seris reporting. Phase 3 complete. Human subjects responding to the neural conditioning. Recommend proceeding to weapons integration. The catalyst shows promising results. Another voice responded, mechanical and cold. Approved. Initiate full conversion. We need 10,000 units before the Senate vote. This war must begin on schedule. The transmission ended. Lyria and Jake stared at each other. Seris, Lyria said finally. My sister. She's the one behind this. Your sister is kidnapping humans and turning them into weapons to start a war? My sister is a fanatic. She believes humanity's expansion threatens Veloran supremacy. She's argued for preemptive strikes for years, but the Senate always voted against her. Lyria's hands clenched. So she created her own justification, turned humans into weapons, set them loose on Veloran colonies, make it look like human aggression. And the Senate votes for war. Jake felt rage building in his chest. How many people are in there? Based on the colony ships, thousands, maybe more. She pulled up the recordings. We have proof. If we can get this to the Veloran Senate and the Human Assembly, we can stop this. If we can get out of here alive... Jake pointed at the scope. 6 Veloran warships were moving into position around them. They'd been detected. Seris's voice crackled over the comm. Dear sister, I wondered when you'd figure it out. You were always too clever for your own good. That's why I had to remove you. Lyria activated their transmitter. Seris, this is insane. You're starting a war that will kill billions. I'm ensuring our species' survival. Humans breed like parasites. In 100 years, they'll outnumber us 10 to 1. This war is inevitable. I'm simply choosing when and how it begins. On our terms. By murdering innocents and creating false evidence. By doing what our weak Senate refuses to do. Protecting our people. A pause. I did try to make your death quick, Lyria. The assassins were supposed to kill you before you took your vows. Then you survived. And I had to get creative. Having you arrested for treason would have worked, but you fled. Now you're here, with all my secrets. I can't let you leave. The warships activated weapons. Targeting locks illuminated their scope. Jake's hands flew over the controls, but they were surrounded. No way out. Seris, please, Lyria said. You're my sister. Don't do this. You stopped being my sister when you married a human. Disgust dripped from every word. You've contaminated yourself. Betrayed our species. When I start this war, you'll be remembered as a traitor who died defending humanity. Poetic, really. The warships fired. Jake threw their ship into a desperate dive, using a derelict colony ship as a shield. Energy bolts tore through the ancient hull, missing them by meters. Lyria returned fire. Her shots precise but ineffective against military-grade shields. We need a plan, Jake shouted over the alarms. Working on it. Lyria's fingers flew over her console. If we can reach that station, its defenses might not fire on us. Seris won't risk damaging her own facility. Big if. Better than dying here. Jake kicked the engines to full, rocketing toward the station. The warships followed, firing continuously. Their shields dropped to 10%, 5%. Alarms screamed. They were losing power. The station loomed ahead, growing impossibly large. Jake could see details now. Docking ports, defense turrets, and doors, massive ones, beginning to open. Something was coming out. Not something. Someone. Hundreds of figures in dark armor, floating in formation. They moved with eerie synchronization, weapons raised. As they came into the light, Jake saw their faces, human faces, blank, empty. The colonists turned into living weapons. "Oh, God," he whispered. Lyria's jaw set. "I'm ending this. Now." She opened a wideband broadcast, sending their recorded evidence to every receiver in range. "This is High Commander Lyria Van Athar to all Veloran and human vessels in range. I am transmitting evidence of war crimes committed by Commander Seris Van Athar. Kidnapping, murder, and illegal weapons development designed to start an interspecies war. This message is also being transmitted to the Veloran Senate and Human Assembly. The conspiracy ends here." Silence. Then chaos erupted on every channel. Voices, demanding explanations, threatening retaliation, calling for backup. The warships hesitated, their commanders receiving contradicting orders. Seris's voice cut through the noise, cold with fury. "Kill them! Kill them now!" But before the warships could fire, new contacts appeared on the scope. Big ones. A Veloran battle group dropped out of FTL, weapons hot. At the same time, from the opposite vector, a human fleet emerged. Both had received the transmission. Both were moving to intercept. "Seris, stand down!" A new voice, older, authoritative. "This is Fleet Admiral Corvin. You are ordered to surrender immediately. All vessels will power down weapons and prepare for boarding." "Never!" Seris screamed. "You don't understand what I've done for our people. What I've sacrificed. You've sacrificed nothing but your honor." Admiral Corvin's fleet moved into firing position. Final warning. Seris's response was to activate the station's weapons. Massive cannons emerged from the structure, targeting both the Veloran and human fleets. The converted human soldiers began moving faster, heading toward nearby ships like missiles. "She's going to try to make them fire on each other," Lyria said. "Start the war right here, right now." Jake saw it unfolding. The human fleet would see Veloran vessels and converted humans attacking. The Veloran fleet would see their station firing on them. In the chaos, it would be impossible to sort truth from lies. Seris might lose, but she'd get her war. Unless someone stopped her. "The station," Jake said. "If we destroy it, the weapons stop. The converted soldiers. The evidence. All of it. We'd need to get inside, overload the reactor. It would mean..." Lyria stopped. "It would mean we don't make it out. But thousands of people do. Maybe billions." She held his gaze for a long moment. They'd been married less than 2 days. Hadn't even wanted to be married. But somewhere between assassins and raiders and conspiracies, they'd become something more. Partners. Friends. Maybe something even beyond that. "I'm sorry I stepped on your tail," Jake said. She laughed, brief and bright despite everything. "I'm not. Not anymore." They turned the ship toward the station's primary docking port. Alarms blared as they accelerated into weapons range. Defense turrets opened fire. Jake flew like a man possessed, weaving through the deadly ballet of energy bolts. Lyria rerouted all power to forward shields, sacrificing everything else for one final push. They hit the docking port at full speed. The crash was catastrophic. Metal shrieked. Systems exploded. Jake felt his ribs crack from the impact. Beside him, Lyria groaned in pain. But they were through, inside the station. They dragged themselves from the wreckage. Blood. Jake stripped on the deck. Lyria's arm hung at an odd angle. Broken. But they were moving. Had to keep moving. The station's interior was a nightmare. Rows of medical pods held unconscious humans. Tubes feeding them chemicals that turned their minds into blank slates. Veloran technicians fled as alarms rang. Jake grabbed a fallen weapon. Lyria did the same with her good arm. "Reactors that way," she said, pointing down a corridor. 3 levels down. They ran, fighting through light resistance. Most of the station's security was outside dealing with the fleet. They reached the reactor level to find Seris waiting for them. She stood before the massive reactor core, a weapon in each hand. She looked like Lyria, same height, same coloring, but her eyes burned with fanaticism. "You've always been weak, sister. Too concerned with honor and laws. Our species needs strength." "Strength?" Lyria advanced slowly. "You call this strength? Kidnapping innocents? Creating weapons from the helpless? I call it survival, something you've forgotten." Seris raised her weapons. "I loved you once, but you chose a human over your own blood. That makes you a traitor. I chose what was right over what was easy. That's the difference between us." They fired simultaneously. Lyria dove left, Jake right. Jake returned fire, forcing Seris to cover. Lyria circled wide, using the reactor infrastructure as concealment. They moved together again. That same unconscious synchronization from their first fight. Seris was good. Better than good. She held them off with practiced efficiency. But she was alone, and they were too. Jake provided suppressing fire while Lyria closed the distance. When Seris turned to target him, Lyria struck. They collided in a fury of close combat. Despite her broken arm, Lyria fought with desperate intensity. Her tail lashed out, catching Seris across the face. Seris stumbled, and Lyria swept her legs. They hit the ground together, struggling for control. Jake ran to the reactor console. He didn't understand Veloran systems, but reactors were reactors. Find the containment field, disable the safety protocols, and... Stop! Seris had broken free, her weapon pointed at Lyria's head. "Step away from that console or I kill her." Jake froze. Lyria met his eyes, and he saw the calculation there. Saw her making the choice. "Do it, Jake. Finish this." "I'll kill her," Seris screamed. "Then you'll die too when this reactor goes," Lyria said calmly. "Is your war worth your life, sister?" For a heartbeat, uncertainty flickered in Seris's eyes. Then it hardened again. Yes. But that moment of doubt was enough. Lie.